All right, guys, I'd like to go over with you how to write a body paragraph for history. And so you should right now be looking at this page. This is where you got to the video. So on this, it gives you a prompt, and it says, in one well-developed paragraph, explain a political, economic, and/or cultural similarity or difference between the Safavid Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Venetian Empire. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a thesis statement. That would be the first sentence of your body paragraph. And I give you an example, and I would love for you to write your own based on in what way you want to compare these three empires. You need two specific pieces of evidence minimum per paragraph, and I'm going to show you how to set that up. And then you need at least one sentence of analysis or explanation per piece of evidence. So that means that you'd have at least one sentence per specific piece of evidence for a total of at least 2 sentences. And then you need your concluding sentence. So a lot of times a thesis statement is 1 sentence long, but it can be longer. To explain or summarize a piece of evidence is usually 1 to 2 sentences, and then to have an analysis is another sentence or 2. So it's possible that right here you'd have 1 sentence. For 2 pieces of evidence, that's at least 2 sentences. With an explanation, another 2. So now you're up to 5 sentences, and then with including sentence 6. That would be a minimum. A lot of times I look for more like 8 sentences for a body paragraph, and I want it to be full of details, and I want you to show that you have the skill of writing. So an example of a thesis statement where you're answering the prompt above, I decided to compare economically what was going on and the military in these 2 or 3 empires. So I said, while the Safavid and the Ottoman empires were built mainly upon military strength, the Venetians focused on dominating trade. So if this is my thesis statement, then I'm going to look for 2 pieces of evidence to support that. Now, if both of my evidences or pieces of evidence are about the Safavid and Ottoman Empire, then I'm not going to say anything about the Venetian Empire, then this is not a good thesis statement. But again, if I don't say anything about the Venetians, then I'm not answering the prompt. So this has a tendency to lend itself to having to have 3 pieces of evidence, because you're going to have 1 from each empire. If you can combine your evidence from the Safavid and Ottoman empires into like 1 overall piece of evidence, you might be able to get away with just 2 pieces of evidence. So you're going to have evidence, and you need to summarize it. It needs to be in your own words. Now, if you have this nearby that you did earlier, you have information about the Ottoman and the Safavid Empire, and I require that you write this summary in your own words with evidence. So you might be able to pull straight from here and just manipulate it a little bit and be able to get your evidence for this paragraph. So for instance, if I'm trying to do something about military strength, I might look at what I put in my box about the expansion of the empire here for the Ottomans, and I might find something about the rise of the Safavids here for my evidence, and then be able to combine it into summarize the fact right here. Then after I summarize the fact, I have to go, well, what point was I trying to prove by these facts? So maybe I proved that, maybe I said the Ottoman Empire expanded from the year, I don't know, 1300, it was this big, and I get a specific piece of evidence, but by 1600 it had gotten, and I explained how big it had become. Well, just because I explain how big an empire is doesn't mean that I've proved that it was built on military strength. So I need to explain how this proves my point. So I might say something like, because the Ottoman Empire was consistently expanding, they had to make sure they had a strong military in order to be able to control it. So that would be my analysis to prove my point. So you need to make sure that you have your evidence, and then you explain how it proves your point. So down here with the Venetians, my point is that they focused on dominating trade. So that would mean then that once I find a fact that shows something about how much they traded, then I have to explain how that was the focus. So maybe it wasn't that they conquered places, but that they had a trading relationship, and I might be able to explain how many different places traded with the Venetians. After you've done that, then what's left is for you to restate your thesis. So go back up here, look at what you said here with your thesis at the beginning of the paragraph, and figure out how to restate it. That doesn't mean you copy and paste it from the top to the bottom, but you'd usually take what you said and expand on it. So maybe I might evaluate and say that the Safavid and Ottoman empires were, because they spent so much of their time on military strength, were doomed to failure because they wasted their resources instead of strengthening their people. So I could make a statement like that, and I could say, whereas the Venetians were able to, prosper because they focused on more friendly relations with their neighbors. So again, restate your thesis, but don't say the exact same thing. So you're going to want to type it all up and then make it look like a paragraph. So how do you do that? Well, remember, your paragraph always starts with an indent, so you're going to tab in. Now, I'm going to be lazy right now. I'm going to copy my sample thesis from up top. I'm going to paste it down here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my first piece, that's nice spelling, piece of evidence, ... right? And then I'm going to explain how it supports my thesis, ... and then I'm going to have a transition to next piece of evidence, ... and then I'm going to summarize evidence number 2, ... Remember, and then next thing is I have to again connect to spelling to my thesis. And then I need to restate, last thing, restate my thesis. So we're talking, and so this is the kind of the setup. It's very basic, but you're talking about 6 to 8 sentences to complete this whole thing. And look at, I've given you some examples of transitions. I said, on the other hand, the Venetians did not have to conquer their neighbors because, and I'm going to give you an example there, or I say one example, the Ottoman and Safavids' focus on military strength is. So again, I've given you this idea that you have, we call these lead-ins to your piece of evidence. So let's see how we do on our first body paragraph that we turn in this week, and I'll give you some feedback, and then hopefully we'll even do better next time. And this will be the basis by which you take tests in this class, because you're going to have to write paragraphs that answer prompts for your tests, and they need to be good and they need to have evidence. Otherwise, you're not going to do very well in this class. So you got to really make an effort. No copying and pasting. This is you and only you. Okay? All right. Good luck. You did a good job.